meant like when I won my first Olympia, it was definitely something where I thought, oh shit, what's next? Everybody else is like, oh, you made it. Like, this is great. I'm like, you guys don't get it.
Yeah.
I was designed to do this multiple times.
Right.
Well, if I only won it once, or if I was only Salesman of the Year once, I would be happy. It's like, man, fuck that.
Right. Hey, JB here, the Wolf of Wall Street, for another incredibly awesome episode of The Wolf's Den. I got a great guest on today. It's going to be one of my favorite of all time. I could already tell. Phil Heath, major bodybuilder extraordinaire. How are you, my friend?
Great to be here.
7-time winner, Mr. Olympia, right? That
Yes.
ties Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
So let me ask you one question, which I think everybody wants to know. How do you keep yourself motivated? Like that is like a really serious commitment. To win it once, you win
Right.
once, right? Okay, I get that. I mean, okay, I can never do that, but like, I guess we could all understand. Like, okay, you peak out at this moment, right? And it's like probably how many years took you to get to that spot? But it's certainly, what's the prep time before that? 6 months, like to peak up to it?
Usually, yeah, you have your off season, and then it definitely takes around 16 weeks of consecutive, no BS, like just
right,
full on
full on.
hardcore training and diet.
Okay, and then you do that and you win, and everyone's like, all right, I've arrived, I've accomplished my life's goal. If you're a bodybuilder, I'm sure that's everyone's goal as a bodybuilder. And then you do it 7 fucking times in a row, which means like you just had this ability to keep getting yourself to do things you probably didn't often feel like doing, but you knew you had to do to get what you wanted. I think that's a huge element of success, getting yourself to do the things you know you have to do, even when you don't enjoy doing them. And obviously you've perfected that for a sustained period. How do you do that?
Well, knowing who the hell you are right away, and understanding that when you dream about certain things, you have to see it before you actually do it. So like for me, it was always visualization of how I wanted to look, and then trying to figure out what is the strategy, what is my why, and then understanding that it comes down to routine, figuring out my actions that lead into those habits, that leads into a better character, that leads into creating positive results, right? So knowing initially, wow, my habits were really shitty. Wasn't really aware of that. I needed to eat every 2 to 3 hours. I was still finishing up. I played 4 years of college basketball, but I graduated in 5. So during that 5th year is when I started bodybuilding. I didn't understand how to use time management for that, because going to the gym was easy. It was the eating part, and then studying, and then still trying to have somewhat of a social life, trying to find balance with that. You know, overall, I just realized there was going to be a lot of sacrifices, and I needed to create certain routines and rituals that could never be broken. That meant a lot of time away from friends, family, but it was all worth it, because I kept telling myself the results are coming. But it was a lot of failing forward, no question about it. It was definitely not something that I knew right away. I thought that I could just eat a bunch of protein and don't drink, and you're going to get shredded. It's like, yeah, but for the common person, yeah, that'll work. But when you're trying to be a top level amateur going pro, it's much, much beyond that. So for me, it was always about small victories, creating good systems, strategy, protocols, and then reinventing that each time. So I always imagine like, what did like companies like Ferrari do when they invented like their first car to go 0 to 60 in 8 seconds?
Right.
And then it slowly
broke all the records, but still,
Yeah,
they had to disrupt themselves almost.
Right.
You know,
and you had to be
besting
confident.
themselves, right?
And you had to be confident to say, you know, I can do this better. It was never about just playing a video game to beat the game. It was about going to the arcade and seeing my name at the highest score.
Sure.
That's what it was always about. So, and then being relentless in my approach, knowing that, I mean, you know this, you cannot be apologetic for wanting to be successful. So that definitely meant, like when I won my first Olympia, it was definitely something where I thought, oh shit, what's next? Everybody else is like, oh, you made it. Like, this is great. I'm like, you guys don't get it.
Yeah.
I was designed to do this multiple times.
Right.
If you only say, well, if I only won it once, or if I was only Salesman of the Year once, I would be happy. It's like, man, fuck that.
Right.
I want more. I want to see how far I can take this.
Right.
That means I have to reinvent everything, keep certain standards very, very high because that's what I did to get there. But then understanding I can do this a lot smarter, a lot better. Anyone can shoot a free throw. Either it's like Shaquille O'Neal or it's like Steph Curry. So for every rep that I would perform, I watch people do it every day. I watch it online. I'm like, but are you doing it perfect every
Right.
time? Is every step that I'm micromanaging the shit out of every step I did on the step mill. Am I squeezing my glutes and my hamstrings a certain way so therefore I could get my glutes and hamstrings to look a certain way? A lot of people weren't thinking like that. They're just showing up.
Right. So now, obviously, I now realize why you have so many followers. You're very eloquent. You know,
Oh, thank you.
no, you're really eloquent explaining things. So a couple of things are really interesting here. Number one is that like everything you said, I was like, oh, you've read my book, right? But I don't even know whether you have or haven't. But I think the interesting thing here is that whether you've studied what I teach or someone else like a Tony Robbins teaches, different people arrive at the same conclusions about success because there really is only, yeah, I mean, you could hit the lottery and get or be a member of the Lucky Sperm Club or something, right? But
Right.
barring that, like there is this really obvious formula for achieving at a high level. And it always starts with visualizing where you want to go first. So as soon as you said that, I'm like laughing inside, obviously,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause it's like, but yet for some reason, like in a room of 1,000 people, like maybe 20 of them have actually really done. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I know where I want." They don't really know. They haven't really done the exercise, written it out, made it bold, bright, and just and identified their why in there, as you said, right? Which is a big thing. I always profess and teach that without your why, it's really you're giving up your power. Your power is in your why to get yourself to do things when you don't feel like doing them, right? My question to you is if I would have asked you this question 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have said the same thing, or were you doing this intuitively from the beginning, or did you start learning about self-development and just to try? You said you failed forward a bunch of times. How did you arrive at a point where you could give such a cohesive statement about success? Because what you said applies to anything, not just bodybuilding.
Right.
Was it always in you, and did you use these tactics in the beginning, or is this something now in retrospect you're saying, "Here's what I did"?
I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I grew up in the inner city. Both my parents worked. My mom and my stepdad raised me. My dad was still involved. I had to watch a lot of bad things happen as far as like violence in the area. My birthday is a week before Christmas, right? So I remember going into the house and cops are there is because someone ransacked our house. They stole a bunch of our shit. Literally the week before Christmas, my birthday, all of our stuff's gone. That happened twice as an adolescent. And it really bothered me because I'm like, why would someone want to take from me? And what I learned is, growing up, people are going to try to take shit from you. You have to be able to protect everything that you really want in life. And I live that every day, the best way I can. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but if there's something that I really, really want, I have to be able to do something that I've never done. And whether it been being told that I wasn't tall enough to play basketball, I still said, screw that. I'm going to train harder, train smarter than the next person. I'm going to be more resourceful with what I have. I went to a school called Rainier Beach High School. Anyone that knows that high school was never supposed to go to be anything special. We were always looked bad. Like it was so bad. Like the school was very, very ghetto. But I would say a book is a book. Can I read? Yeah. Well, then that means I can go against any person that went to a private school. A book is a book. I can just be more resourceful. I can go to the library. I can do these things. So doing bodybuilding was great for me because I didn't necessarily have to rely on everybody else to push me. I was raised as an only child. I was always a self-starter with both my parents working. I had to get myself up for school. I never took a school bus. I actually took the city bus where a lot of parents would never put their kid at 11 years old on a city bus. But I saw a lot growing up and I just wanted more for myself. And I remember getting a Division I scholarship. I was like, this is my way out. This is a great opportunity. I'm not going to waste it. Did I have a great college career? Hell no. But I made the best of what I got. And, I really wanted to apply myself in bodybuilding because I looked at that as a new chapter. So overall, I'm just always willing to create different versions of myself in the pursuit of personal perfection. I know I'm not going to ever be perfect. And I know that that's something that even sitting with you, I mean, you're very well accomplished. We all know that. I find you very fascinating because of what you've been able to accomplish, but more importantly, of how you've been able to be resilient when people are coming at you. And because anytime you're on top, people want to come at
I
you.
know,
They
it's
want to screw
great.
with you.
You get really good. It's like, you know, you get really good at like at that, because like people are vicious in this world, and like, you know, you have different platforms, and like the viciousness goes from like, you know, Twitter is probably the most vicious, and then they go, you know, increasingly less vicious as you go down, but they're all designed by the people who made them to be vicious. They
Correct.
reward negativity, and it's really sad what these platforms have become. And what didn't have to be that way, but it is, right? They've tapped into the worst aspects of human nature. My secret is I just don't read any of it, like because I'm internally, I have an internal compass that says I know what I'm doing is awesome. I know I'm helping people. I know everyone that I touch is being benefited by the stuff I do. I know what I did wrong in the past. I've learned from that.
Right.
So like, I don't care what people say about me, because I know.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, like to my first question, I wasn't always like that.
Right.
Right. Now, it used to really bother me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be lying if I said it still doesn't get a little twinge when I hear something. Of course I get a twinge, but that just makes me stronger and more resilient, because I realize that the best revenge is living well. That's, you know, of anything, whether it's your ex-wives or anything else.
100%.
Matter,
100%.
right?
I have one. So yeah.
It's always the best revenge is just to live a great life.
100%.
All right?
93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. Head to netsuite.com/wolf for a special one-of-a-kind financing offer. That's netsuite.com/wolf, netsuite.com/wolf.
And then, you know, sometimes you have an ex-wife who's awesome, and you're hoping she's living great too, right? So I don't mean that in a bad way, in case she's listening, right?
Right.
But the bottom line is that my question was though, is like you said something that was so spot on. Like, you know, I have a vision. I saw myself up, you know, winning the contest right before it ever started. In fact, I've had some Olympic athletes on here, and all of them say the same thing. Before I won, I ran the race 10,000 times. I saw myself on the podium taking the gold medal. It's like a very common thing because it works, right? And if you speak to people who really understand success in business with money, same thing. You know, you always start backwards. Where do I want to end up? And then, as you correctly said, you identified your why it mattered to you, why you wanted it, right? And it wasn't just because to be famous and make some money. You had much deeper reasons why, and that gave you the power then to overcome obstacles, barriers, things that were in your way, setbacks, because there are always going to be setbacks,
100%.
right? Mistakes you make, we all make mistakes, which is part of success, right? And then you talked about developing strategies and protocols and short term and all the shit that was like literally perfect. It was like this perfect explanation. It was a book on success right there. Did you feel that way when you were, how old are you now?
42.
Did you feel that way at 25 or no? You just were sort of one foot in front of the other?
Yeah, 25. I was, 25 years old. Yeah, we're approaching that time. Okay, so 25.
You're probably just getting into
my God.
Bodybuilding takes time, right? You're not.
Yeah,
it takes time to develop your muscles and really get thicker with age, right?
I was definitely a guy that was more like the Kobe Bryant that came out of high school that shook up the world. 25 years old. That summer of July is when I turned pro at the Mr. USA competition. I won the overall there. But a month prior, I was getting ready for the junior nationals just to qualify for the Mr. USA. And I literally had $43 to my freaking name going to that show in Chicago. And I had an opportunity to get signed by Weider Health and Fitness, so Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness. So that was a good opportunity. But I was broke. I was fucking broke, man. And I remember my best friend just happened to be on business he was working for, I believe, Sun Microsystems at the time, and he used his points to get me upgraded to get a micro fridge in my room. I had like no food. He used his per diem to help me out. And I remember telling him, I was like, this shit ain't ever going to happen again. I said, I'm going to use this and I'm going to get this sponsorship and everything's going to be a thing of the past. Credit was in the toilet, just coming out of college, had nothing.
Yeah.
I won that show, got my deal, took that signing bonus, bought a new car. Literally 2 hours after I got the car, got rear-ended, got ready for the Miss USA and won that damn thing. The story is the fact is that you're going to have ups and downs. You just still have to stay focused and put your best foot forward. Can't expect things to be gifted to you as well. And that's been a story of my life. You know, just understanding that I have a goal in my mind doesn't mean that haters aren't going to come your way. I have a ton of them. I learned at one point in time to embrace that shit and just to use it as fuel. If you want to give them the middle finger, do it with your performance.
Right.
And never be afraid to tell the world who you are by showing them who you are. You don't have to just say, well, I'm the best. It's like, no, you can say it once,
Right.
but then you prove that shit. And then for me, yeah, we talk about reverse engineering of our goals. The year before I won the Mr. Olympia, I was scared shitless to win because I knew what the responsibility was. So there's probably a ton of people that take your courses, meet you, or even watching this are going to probably say, yeah, he's probably right. Or maybe they're lying to themselves saying, yeah, I want to be salesman of the year. It's like, yeah, okay, you be salesman of the year. Why can't you do it 2 years in a row then?
Right.
You start making excuses. No different than now when you were a child and you got straight A's and then your parents are like, well, why can't you do that every quarter,
Right.
every semester, every year?
Yeah.
Like, what's the problem? Well, I can't. You start making up stories. So for me, it was like, I literally had to like stare at myself in the mirror. And instead of going to magazines like Flex Magazine and saying, oh, so how do you feel getting ready for, I'm going to fucking win and I'm going to do this. And, you know, I visualize this and this is mine. It's like, sure. Do you know what the responsibilities are when you get it? And can you keep it?
100%.
And a lot of people can't keep it. A lot of people in sports business
Totally agree.
can't do it.
Was that your low point, by the way? The moment when you had no money and you had
my God.
friend, was that your low?
It was definitely one of them.
One of your lows.
One of my darkest moments because I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Let me ask you this: how'd you make the transition? So it's interesting. You're a basketball. Oh, so you're an athlete, obviously,
Yeah.
right? You're a great athlete, college athlete. So, and then you graduate, right? And you said you didn't really have a distinguished career in basketball,
Correct.
right? Where'd you go to school, by the way?
University of Denver.
Denver, right? Okay.
Yep.
And you graduate. How many years after that did you start to pursue bodybuilding?
Right after.
Right
So like,
So you
I
were
graduated in
21, 22?
so yeah, I was 22, going on 23 years old. Yep. So I played 4 years consecutively. And then I took a 5th year because I was majoring in business and also IT. So during that 5th year, I wasn't playing basketball anymore. So I just got into bodybuilding as a hobby because some friends of mine were doing it. I remember looking at a guy in a programming class. We're doing a Oracle 9i class, so some programming. And he's got these bodybuilders on his home screen on his laptop. I got Brooke Burke butt ass naked on mine. And I'm like, what's that? And he was like, these are some bodybuilders, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler. I was like, well, that looks pretty cool. Like must take a lot of work. Is that what you do? And he was like, well, yeah. So I just said, well, I'll meet you at the gym because normally, you know, the athletes have their own gym and then the students have their own gym. So I just went to student gym. I never trained there. And that's when I started looking at like, wow, like I could actually, you know, just get in shape. And, you know, I was thinking, well, girls like muscles, right? You know, like, all right, who doesn't want 6-pack abs and some, you know, big ass arms and chest? And it just turned into a career for me. But yeah, you know, this has been it was a really cool experience. And when you talk about like low points, I've had multiple.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity to take a time out and reflect, and then also realize that it's more of an opportunity for greatness. It's just something that you didn't deal with maybe early on in your life that were preventing you from getting to that next chapter. For me, it was always like, oh, well, one of my darkest moments was actually not playing as much in college, being a state champion in high school.
Sure.
And going to college thinking, well, I turned down other deals to go to this small college, got very little playing time to the point I wanted to be suicidal.
Interesting.
And then, wait a minute, I get into bodybuilding and I'm really good at it. Well, I shouldn't piss on this. So this is my second chance. This is my quote unquote second act. Let me go ahead and see how, and that's why I became very confident because I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about this, but I'm going to heavily immerse myself in this sport. I'm going to research as much as possible. I'm going to read as many books as I can about nutrition. I'm going to learn the history of it. I'm going to get a VHS tapes, you know, just to watch, like, what does this mean? How do they pose? Practice. And did I know what I was doing my first show? Hell no. I didn't know anything, but I had the willingness to stay committed to the process and just to reinvent myself as much as possible. Stay humble and ask questions. And, you know, now I'm in the space where, you know, I study people like yourself who have made it in different ways, but we're all share, like, I believe, like that championship DNA, always wanting more.
Yeah.
What's next? And then how can we contribute to the world? How can we make people more aware of who they are? Because the person you see in the mirror every day, that's who you got to be accountable to in order to help wife, kids, friends,
No doubt.
parents.
How did your body look before you started bodybuilding? What was your body type? Were you like always muscular?
Yeah.
Were you ripped and stuff? And you know what? First of all, how much did you? How tall are you?
5'9".
How much did you weigh before you started bodybuilding?
So 175. I graduated high school of 150, 155.
Okay.
So yeah, I was 175, 180 in college. And then I did my first amateur show at 190 pounds. And
what do you weigh now? What'd you weigh when you won the Mr. Olympia?
The first time I was like 235. So
Wow.
I gained like a good 40, 45 pounds of stage weight
Of muscle.
From April 4th of 2003 to mid-September of 2011.
How did it just baffles me that it's just amazing to me because I work out. No, I've always been in good shape.
I see some of your photos.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like
I'm like in good shape still, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yep.
That is like a really, really difficult sport. Like,
Mm-hmm.
How many hours a day were you working out? Was it like, is it, or maybe I'm wrong. Is it just like, there's some secret that we don't know about? I mean, obviously there's a question of steroids. Okay. And obviously I'm gonna ask that. I assume everyone does some amount of
We're
steroids.
F1. So yeah.
Right. Obviously.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, fuck, I would take them. I don't know.
Right.
Why wouldn't you? Right. I take testosterone now. Right.
Right.
But I think every man should, by the way.
100%.
Yeah. So,
we'd have a lot less problems in the world, if you know what I'm saying, in government, and yeah, whatever.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying, but but like, how in those can anyone do it? Can anyone do that? Or it's certainly like I know my son Bowen. He doesn't put on muscle like I
Mm-hmm.
do. He doesn't. You don't. You have a different body type than I do. He's longer. He's taller. He's just more. His muscles are longer. Mine bulk up much quicker.
Right.
So can someone like Bowen win a Mr. Olympia, or just that's not the right genetics for it?
I think it's definitely something that you see early on in their life. Like when you look at certain photos, like you could see a photo of me probably at the age 10, 12, 15 and say, okay, well, this guy's got some genetics because he's barely even trying. He actually has muscle that looks more cartoon shape. Like when I say cartoonish, more bubbly, like
right,
the
exactly.
actual muscles, like they're
Bowen's
round.
Those are longer and,
right.
And,
So you definitely have to have that structure already going on, or should I say that musculature going on already. And then it's all about obviously your training, your willingness to go through the pain of training, because there's a lot of pain that goes on to that. Your training, like to answer your question, I mean, it's usually like a 3 to 4 hour training day, like not consecutive hours, but when I'm getting up in the morning, I'm doing anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes of cardio. I'm doing that once or twice a day. Then I'll have 2 weight sessions of a minimum of 60 minutes. So I'm doing that 5 to 6 days a week.
And is the idea like the old school stuff that I grew up with was like you have to stress your muscle to the point of failure for it to grow. Is that true?
It is to a degree, but the problem that I find is that people aren't focusing on the recovery aspect. If you notice, more people are living longer and actually having more athletic performance at a high level as they age,
exactly,
because of the recovery. Like when you mentioned testosterone, taking testosterone will definitely help with recovery, because if it's too low, you're not going to recover the same.
Right.
So if you learn, like for me, it was all about waking up in the morning, doing cardio, having a infrared sauna in my house. I was using all the money that I was.
Why infrared sauna?
Because the ceramic panels actually able to pull from the actual your body of a different way. The waves that are actually sent in are much different than just going to a bathhouse and just sitting in steam and just shocking your body that way, and you just perspire that way. This is a little bit more scientific, but it always extracted toxins a much cleaner way. Whereas if I go into a sauna, okay, it's already at 160 degrees. Yeah, I'm going to sweat. Let's get up to 180. Yeah, my body's stressed. Usually some of these infrared panels, they actually go up with your body. It will actually hit your core temperature a lot differently. And this is just stuff that I researched and thought, well, why not I try this? So I had a system. My system was get up in the morning, do the cardio, come back, do the sauna treatment, then shower up, hit the hyperbaric chamber. I got one of those portable Vitaris 320s. I slept in that for like a good 90 minutes, 2 hours, ate, then carried on with my day. Would get chiropractic.
Hyperbaric means you're sleeping at altitude or
No,
extra oxygen?
I was actually sleeping in one of those pods. Like
No, like is it simulate high or low extra oxygen or less oxygen?
Well, more oxygen. So
more oxygen.
More oxygen. So like right now, we're at 20 to 21% of the Earth's oxygen that we intake. Now you're in a 94 to 96, pressurized cabin basically. So now that oxygen will supersaturate the soft tissue, therefore enabling more growth. So, that cellular growth can actually go through the skin, helping out your vital organs.
Does that work really well?
Oh, it definitely worked for me for quite a long time. I ended up getting quite claustrophobic after a while because at my heaviest, I was 283. And being in that little thing, you generate a lot of heat. So I would always get claustrophobic in that thing. But that came years after. But I did notice a high level of performance. And I was also training at high altitude, living in Denver, Colorado at the time. So I was training at high altitude from August of 1998 through, just last year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I definitely proliferated more, hematocrit, hemoglobin, more red blood cell count. And that also aided my muscular development. But being in that hyperbaric and having those systems really did help the performance, getting the hyperbaric, but also chiropractic, being on a decompression machine, making sure that my spine is being elongated so then it wasn't compressing on the nerves. Because of course, being at that size, you're definitely going to have, compression. Having, heavy bars on your back and all this other stuff, you start messing with your spine. Your muscular development is definitely going to be compromised. So I was doing all these different modalities throughout the week. And as new things were invented, I was the first person to get on it. So I was more focused on recovering faster so then I could train more. Whereas old school mentality was just beat the shit out of your weights, just kill it, and then just eat. That'll help you recover. It's like, yeah, that's true. But then like, how's your massage therapy working? Are you doing Graston? Are you doing acupuncture? I was doing acupuncture with electronic stim.
Graston, what you say?
Graston. So like they take like the little like it's almost like a knife, like they like rub against your muscle fascia to help break up some of the soft tissue that's been damaged to help create more growth. Now, all those things said, like I see people online they'll do it until they get like really bad scarring, like bruises and stuff. I learned that isn't always going to work as well. So I was visiting with a lot of different doctors, physicians all over the world to figure out like how could I get that 1% better, because that's all I needed to stay on top.
Sure.
So I was able to do that, and I reinvested all that time and those resources into new technology, not just like, oh, you got cold laser therapy. Well, how about I go get an MLS laser that's even better, that doesn't produce heat, so then I don't burn myself. How about I do cryo? Like, what's that about? Cold showers, all these things. And that's why even right now at 42, people could say, well, like we were just talking about it earlier, I could still compete if I really wanted to because of how I treated myself during my prime years.
So I know there's a lot of stuff out there right now, like cutting edge, and new stuff keeps coming out. You said as new stuff came out, you kept being first at it, right? Some of the stuff I think is probably just like it's incremental small gains and probably not for the amateur, the everyday person. But I bet you there's some stuff that you could tell us about that actually is good for everybody. Like what are the most profound things that you've been able to essentially test on yourself and you say, that is something that anybody, like for example, things that are easy to do and certainly will have an impact that you'll feel. Would cryotherapy be something like that? What else? I don't want to put words in. You tell me. What are like the top 3 things you would recommend, like that are not everyday things, like massage? Okay, I get it.
Definitely neuromuscular massage. I think is definitely something that people need.
Neuromuscular massage, as opposed to regular.
Just like regular, actually having more movement. Like when people just like pushing down on you just to make you feel bad, like that's not necessarily helping. Like I'm a bigger guy, so I definitely need to be more functional. I want to be more of a functional athlete.
Yeah.
So if I can't do this, then that's a problem. So I need to have like an understanding of like, why can't I put my hand behind my back? Oh, maybe your rear delt, which is connected to this, which is connected to that, is too tight. So how about we do the massaging and stretching at the same time and work that way. I would definitely look into infrared saunas. I definitely believe in that because anytime you can eliminate, toxins is very, very important. The HBOT therapy, I think that's something that a lot of people may find valuable.
H
HBOT, like hyperbaric.
hyperbaric.
Yeah. So I definitely feel like if people can get into that pod and try it out, I definitely feel like they'll see a result like within like the first month. But these are things that you definitely have to be committed to. It's not like a one-off. One-offs would be like MLS laser therapy. I definitely feel like the MLS laser is, I think you have like your cold laser, you have the K laser, but those produce heat. The MLS laser actually doesn't produce heat.
Well, how does it work?
Well, it's definitely something like, let's say you have like something wrong with your forearm and you've been golfing or whatever. You're like, oh, this hurts. Well, the machine itself works on an algorithm where it will dictate like, okay, I'm just going to go over this area, nothing else. It's a robotic arm that will do it. A technician can come in with a hand unit and just go over your hands or whatever. Let's say you have carpal tunnel, whatnot, and it'll reduce the inflammation at the cellular level, but it'll also increase more vasodilation. So anytime you can increase blood flow,
You're healing faster.
You're going to heal faster. So it definitely helps with that. It's definitely something that I had a couple hernia surgeries, one in 2017 after winning number 7. And then the year later, I retore it in 2018. I immediately, after got those surgeries, went to my friend's clinic out of Ohio and then just laid on that table. And it only took like 20 minutes a day for like a week. It definitely helped me heal a lot faster than just sitting around and, I mean, anytime you have hernia surgery, you can't really move.
So anytime you have like that could be used in any part of your body.
Any part of your body. It could be like you have a low back injury. You have plantar fasciitis. You have a micro tear like in your forearm, your chest. Anywhere. Those are things that, I mean, it's a lot of foot doctors actually have these at their facilities now. It's a little bit less expensive than it once was.
Yeah.
But I mean, a session would cost like under $100. So I think it's more valuable for the person to go in and, people are on their feet a lot. Like they need to, get that inflammation removed. So I definitely feel like MLS therapy, you do your cryo. I would prefer a cold tub if, like do the Wim Hof style shit,
How long in the cold tub?
Oh my gosh. Like as long as you can. I mean, like for me, 3 minutes, like that's enough. But like, I know there's some people that can definitely do it for longer, but I was doing cold tubs like in college and, at the University of Denver, we have one of the best hockey teams around. They just won national championship a couple weeks ago and they would always challenge us to see who could be in the 55-degree cold tub the longest. And none of us ball players wanted to do it. I would just jump in there and just, oh my gosh, it would feel, it was, when you say chilling, it's not even the word, but I honestly say try it all, but like those modalities that I just mentioned, I mean, if you're into acupuncture, always look at a therapist that probably studied in China, because you'll have dry needling, you have acupuncture. I went through an acupuncturist that studied in China, an American that studied there, and that definitely helped my career a lot. It was all about the blood flow, though.
Sure.
All about increasing that any way you
What
can
about the shockwave therapy?
That's new, yeah. One of my friends is actually flying in today. I'm actually gonna be speaking with him at a chiropractic conference in Miami this week, and he just implemented that at his clinic.
Yeah,
and I'm fascinated to see how that works. He told me about it. I've heard that it reduces a lot of adhesions, but like you said, I mean, it's all new technology. I'm willing to try it all.
What about supplements? Now you actually have your own line of supplements, right?
I did, and then during COVID, I had to shut it down because, I started it actually months before. So I had literally I had 5 SKUs, had literally a ton of stores like in the UAE and other places ready to go, and then once that happened, they're like, well, Phil, like we can't. I mean, there's no gyms that are open, there's no stores that are open, so you're gonna have to make a choice. I'm like, well, I have all this inventory sitting around. What do I do? I was like, how about I shut it down until we start seeing some daylight? So I just did, obviously sold as much as I could during 2020. And now I'm looking to do something again now that the world supposedly is now reopening.
How about doing it online sales?
Yeah.
That would be like the best, I think, way to do it.
Yeah.
I have some friends that do really well with that.
Oh, I'm sure. There's
really well.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk about that. But, I definitely have a niche for that. I do recognize that throughout my career, what a lot of distributors, especially abroad, is to have this interaction with me. So I find that very valuable. as a key element in that type of business, because like in the Middle East or parts of Australia, South America, they want to see the champ. So they'll have a distributor that says, hey, I'll sell to these different stores, but can you make an appearance? And it's like based on a purchase order, right? Doing that virtually isn't usually the way that they like it.
Sure.
That's,
but I mean, people are getting more and more accustomed to the virtual stuff.
Yeah,
so
but
I'm sure
anytime-
there's a path for you with that.
Yes.
What was your when you were younger? Who was your idol in bodybuilding?
Oh man.
Was it Arnold?
It had to be Arnold. I mean, like that's all I knew. Arnold was the person that was on the posters for Conan and all of that, but also he was on the posters with Bush talking about the President Health of Fitness test.
Right.
So I always looked to him as like, wow, like this is the fittest guy. And my parents were cool enough to let me watch R-rated movies, so I got to see Predator and all that good stuff. Red Heat, all those films, Terminator. And I was like, this is fascinating. And you could never say his name right growing up. So you definitely knew who he was. He was all over the place.
Right.
But he was always about like strength. And I found that so fascinating. I didn't really know about him as a bodybuilder until later on, like I'd probably say as a teenager.
Right.
But growing up, yeah, idols definitely in bodybuilding were, it was just Arnold. Maybe Lou Ferrigno a little bit just because of the Hulk, but it was always Arnold.
So you started bodybuilding 25 years old.
23.
23 years old, right?
Yeah.
So you go through this sort of period where you're obviously an amateur, you realize you want to go pro. How does the monetary side of this work with bodybuilding? How much do you, like, if you don't mind asking, what do you win when you win Mr. Olympia? Is there a big, is it a cash prize, or is it more like then there's all the sponsorships and all the notoriety? I mean, you could monetize the win, or does the win itself have money attached to it?
So it was a little bit of both. So it's evolved over time. So when I was getting into it, I believe first place was $100,000. Then it went to 150. Then by the time I won it, I believe it was at 250,000. And then when I started winning more, it started going up more. So it went from 250 to 300, then to 400, and it's been capped at 400 since. I won my last title in 2017. So yeah, it's been at 400 since. I always said it should have been $1 million, if not more.
One would think. I mean, like with the amount of, I'm sure the television rights alone.
Right. And that was the other issue, is the TV rights. That's definitely something that the organization itself has had its difficulties with, of actually finding that, strategic partner to make sure that the Olympia was being viewed on an actual network.
Right.
I think that's probably their one missing leg on the, because as you know, like in sports, it's all about the TV rights.
Yeah.
So I think that once they get that component resolved, I think it could definitely have a meteoric rise, with the athletes actually getting more sponsors. But usually you win the Olympia, you're going to get more sponsors, right? The problem is over time, there's one key element that went away, and that was the magazines. So remember, the magazines were everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm the first Mr. Olympia.
Muscle Fitness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I was the first Mr. Olympia to ever go through social media like heavily. So I was the only one that understands and actually witnessed being on the cover of, I was on the cover of over 300 magazines throughout my career in different countries, all that good stuff, but then it becoming all digital. So once that happened, and when it went to digital, imagine all the people putting products in those magazines. That magazine went from 300 pages to like 80 pages.
Sure.
In no time. All those advertisers, they're like, well, I don't really need athletes anymore. I could just go to give everyone a feeling like they're a part of this company by giving them a coupon code. I don't really need athletes. I can just go mass market and just say, you want a code, you want a code, you want a code. But that has also not helped with certain companies. And we've noticed that over the past, especially the last 5 years, that has definitely made the athletes broke, not making the money. Top 10 at the Olympia, they're not making the money that they should through sponsors anymore, because they got, I hate to say it, but just an average person that is willing to just talk about the product all day, that maybe can be a little bit more persuasive in their messaging. Whereas the other athlete, that's all they did. They were just so consumed with the craft. And I can say, I was one of those guys as well, to have to reinvent yourself and go from not doing interviews with a journalist who really knew how to eloquently describe and illustrate what you're thinking and what you're doing, to just having guys running vlogs and then doing reaction videos off of vlogs
Yeah.
and then people doing Photoshop on their pictures and videos and all this other BS, it really made athletes realize, gosh, like I'm really putting in a lot of effort and getting paid very little. So my job now is to bring more awareness to that because it's real. I mean, I want athletes to make as much money as they can. But I think it's imperative that they understand, the athletes also have to understand what the climate really is. They can't just say, well, okay, well, I'm just going to compete once or twice a year, you know, and just sit on my ass. I got to be able to, you know, tell my story. And that is knowing who you are, but getting those words out the best way you can.
So what's your business look like now? How do you monetize this? You have this massive celebrity, right?
Right.
So what do you do? Do you have do you go on tour? Do you have
we're starting to tour again, so that's great. And especially with this whole mandates and masks and stuff being eliminated, it definitely opens up a lot more opportunities, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, just getting the visas before was it was a hassle. And then not having events actually be fully opened,
right?
Because bodybuilding is in over 190 countries, right?
Sure.
So going on tour is definitely something of great importance, because then I can do my training camps, I can do seminars, I can do meet and greets.
Was that a big part of your business?
Very, very large. Over 90% of my income definitely came from international travel. 90%, I would say. So when the world shut down, it was like, oh my goodness.
I know.
And then you have to reinvent yourself. But now it's good because you know, I've done. You were talking about writing for your book, and now I'm able to compile notes for mine at some point. And I needed that time out. I used that time out wisely, I believe, to figure out like who the hell I really am.
Yeah.
Not just as a bodybuilder, not just as a basketball player, but like who I am as a human being, you know, being married, being divorced, winning, losing, having money, losing money, having money, you know, like all these different things. And really wanting to share that quote unquote gift with the world, so then they can go out and get theirs, have some good positive momentum, because a lot of the things that I've done are very unrelatable, you know, as far as like competition, looking like that. But the story is very relatable.
Totally.
You know?
So right now your business is you're about to go back on tour. Anything else you're doing?
I have a documentary coming out later this year. It's called Breaking Olympia. It's actually it was directed by Brett Harvey and with Scorju Productions, but also co-produced by Seven Bucks Productions with Danny Garcia and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Nice. And where's that going to air on? Do you know?
We're still going through that negotiation process. So we've definitely got some eyeballs from major networks. Every one of them has contacted us. We're looking at some film festivals that are coming up here very soon. And it's going to be exciting because it definitely talks about my life journey. Yeah. And it's almost like a last dance appeal to it.
Yep.
But it's not just about competition. It's about the next chapter in my life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm really impressed with your grasp of what it takes to become successful in anything. I think people forget that like success is like there's this roadmap and it's out there. It's not like, you know, listen, it's not easy, but there's not like, you know, how do I go forward? How do I become successful? There's actually a very legitimate way, a pathway, right? And it starts in my mind with always knowing where you want to go first, right? And being very, very clear on that. And then knowing your why. What was your why back in the day, by the way? What was your like deepest level why? Why did you want to win this contest?
Man, I didn't want to give up on myself because a lot of people believed in me. Parents, I had a lot of good male figures in my life, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good basketball, track, football, like a lot of strong men. And they all saw me not having that killer instinct to just go after it. And then once I tapped into that, I became who I am today. I didn't want to let them down.
Got it.
I just didn't want to let them down. And I realized that, you know, I'm a believer in God, that he gave me some incredible stuff. But by me being lazy, procrastinating, not really willing to run through those obstacles, I would have never been able to see the world the way I have. I've traveled millions of miles, been able to meet a lot of impressive people. But if I would have given up, or if I would have been complacent, I wouldn't be sitting here. So, you know, my why was just the future of knowing that like there are no freaking limits. It's just if I wanted to have something I never had before, I had to be willing to do something I never done before. And I kept saying that shit to myself. And I when I started winning, I started believing it. And when I lost, I still said, screw it. I'm just going to keep going. And, you know, that's still my why. Is just, even post career, it's like my second act now, the back nine of this golf course is where I change the world. And that's my mission, is to do something that when I die and someone sees that headstone, they're not going to say that's Phil Heath at the bodybuilder. They're going to say that's a person that really imprinted something in my soul, because he gave a damn about his success more than anybody else did.
Right.
And that takes a lot of work. I mean, I'm still in work in progress, and I'm loving that process. But I thank God for that process, because I could be doing a lot of very low level stuff if I just didn't believe. So I have to stay mindful of the traps that come with success. I have to stay in alignment with creating positive energy, positive moments, but then also reminding myself that it could be all taken away for you not showing enough gratitude. So I choose to be in gratitude. I choose to go all out now, even more, because what's the common stereotype of a bodybuilder? That he's stupid, that he doesn't know this or she know that. I'm here to dispel all of it.
Interesting.
And not hold it to myself.
How'd you stay in shape during the pandemic?
I snuck into the gym. Like I already had keys to it. I don't own a gym, but the owner gave me keys a long time ago. I trained with the lights completely off and used my iPhone as a light. That's what I did, because I knew someone was going to rat my ass out. You know, the haters, Phil gets to train, but I don't get to train. Let me go call the cops, you know? So I trained with the lights completely off. I trained at like 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
Sun's down. I parked my car like a few blocks away, had to walk. And this is in Denver, so it didn't matter if it was, you know, snowing or whatever. I did what I had to do. I was willing to, like I said, I was willing to do whatever it took.
Where do people listen to this? How do they find you? What's the best place to find you online?
Instagram, usually the best there. Twitter, Facebook, it's all the same. It's just at Phil Heath. I respond to everybody. I'm on LinkedIn as well. That's you know, that's the easiest way, you know. But I'm on Instagram pretty hard. Twitter, definitely. I actually like the craziness sometimes on Twitter because I get to see how people react versus respond to certain things, certain topics. I'm very fascinated on
it's
how
a very
people,
reactive platform.
Yeah, I'm very, you know, because
That's a good
I see how people respond to some of your stuff as well. And I always ask myself, do they ever look at themselves in the mirror and reread some of this shit and say, I literally just said this to someone who I would probably be better at asking a question. Do you find that that's like something that is sometimes maybe bothersome, that someone would, I get it, like you're going to have the morons, but I'm saying more like I would be asking you more questions and not being afraid to get those answers from you than to just throw a stupid jab out there to get your attention. Oh, I got his attention because I called him an asshole. It's like no, I'd rather ask you a real question.
I think that what happens is that Twitter, social media in general, encourages cowardice. So people that would never in a million years say it to you face to face. I go outside and like and once in 15 years, if someone said something negative to me, I get 100 times a day. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, thank you, changed my life, thank you,
right.
I love your stuff, thank you." Right? And like, one person, there was just an idiot stockbroker, right? And it was kind of funny, right? But there's something about the ability to hide behind this handle that that brings out the worst in people, and it's a sort of this mob mentality. They say the mob on Twitter. Well, that's literally the mob mentality, and the mob is can be very, very fickle and also very, very nasty. And I think what you have to realize, if you're a celebrity, if you're gonna read these comments and like live by what other people say about you, you're gonna have a really, really miserable and at best up and down life where everything that you feel inside is based on whatever they said last about you. I just couldn't possibly see
you lose who you are.
existing
You
that
lose your
way,
power.
right?
Yeah.
So to me, you know, I don't give a shit what anyone says. Like anyone, I just
Right.
don't care because I know where I am and what I'm doing, and I've succeeded so, you know, massively after making such a huge mistake. And people have made much bigger mistakes than I made, by the way, but still, I made a big mistake and I succeeded more than ever. And if that pisses some people off, then that just shows exactly what they're like. It's like if that just
Yeah.
shows that their own miserable life is something they can't deal with, and they want to just throw stones at someone else who's successful because it'll make them feel better for a moment. But the thing is, when they go to bed at night, they're still fucking miserable. And I still have a great life with a beautiful wife and a beautiful home and a great family and a million people who love me, and I love what I do. So why should I care what they say? That's my attitude.
No, 100%. I think you're absolutely right. I had people do the same. Heck, I mean, it was very despicable. Like you said, cowardice.
It's cowardice.
Cowardice. Like people would do it just as, I always look at it like they're throwing fog into your view of where you're trying to go. It doesn't mean that you can't still navigate through it.
There's another point to this, though.
Yeah.
Is that they actually increase engagement.
Right.
And you make money from them.
Right.
So like I'm like, oh, thanks. Keep hating. I'll make more money. It's like if you hate me that much, just keep bashing me because they know my fans will chime in. You're fuck you. You're an idiot. It
That's
goes back
funny
and
you
forth.
say that. I had that happen in my career.
And you make money from it's sad that social media encourages that negativity and that this division. They sow division. This is why the world is so divided right now.
Right. They fall for it. They fall for it.
They do.
But you do have to capitalize on it in a way. I mean, I had a bodybuilder who I was going head to head with quite a bit, and people started hating on me a lot. And I had to film a documentary that was more of a docudrama that people really thought was real.
Yeah.
And I was getting a shitstorm of like negative comments, and I did not respond to it very well. I was just like, you know, screw you, this and that, you know. But again, you know, there was no real blueprint. Being the first Mr. Olympia during social media, I just thought, well, you're saying F you. I'm like, well, screw you back.
Yeah.
But then I realized, why not just go like straight Batman Dark Knight in her ass and just be the villain for a minute. Just be the hero villain.
Yeah, I get it.
So I think that sometimes, you know, Tim Grover is a great friend of mine, and we talk about the dark side. You know, sometimes you got to tap into that, especially as an athlete, right? And I just figured, well, I'm just going to make those haters' life hell by just increasing my performance. But you're right. At some point in time, you have to get to the point of ascension where it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving you and the people that believe in you right.
I'll give you an example. So I recently had an article come out in the New York Times that I had a cryptocurrency mastermind, right? And it was a good article. It was just, and you know, the article wasn't bad at all. It was a good article, right? It was just like a very interesting piece, right? And interviewed the people that were there, right? And just nothing groundbreaking in the article, right? But some people, and actually some other platforms wrote, oh, so he was the guy who hated cryptocurrency and now he likes it. Like he changed his mind. I'm like, are you fucking stupid? So wait, I changed my mind? Yeah, like based on new information. And after like 3 years, and by the way, I was right about 90% of what I said anyway. But the point is that like the idea that an intelligent investor can only remain locked into one position is so patently idiotic and ridiculous that it defies
100%.
all logic. Like anyone with half a brain knows that if you're an investor, you have to change your mind all the time. That means also companies don't grow, change, markets don't change, adoptions don't occur, people start rejecting. It's like saying I'm a still believer. I love MySpace. MySpace is the best thing. I said MySpace was the future.
I love Atari.
Right, I love Atari. That's
yeah.
it. Like what the fuck? So, but the inanity of it. It's so when I hear that stuff, like my people say, you want to respond? I'm like, no, they're just fucking idiots. These people, like they deserve, by the way, to live in that crazy, insane. I wouldn't call it a bubble, but a cave of despair that they all live in, where they just sit there and try to hate on anything because somehow they think, at least for a moment, it will make them feel better about their own selves and their miserable lives. So that's how I look at it.
Selective outrage.
There you go, right?
Their selective outrage is it's actually pathetic.
It's pathetic.
It's cowardice, but it's absolutely effing pathetic.
It's pathetic and it's funny. Some of the stuff's really funny when they really like just choose to. What was it the other day? Someone said something, and like an athlete said something, and they just chose. I forgot, and they just chose to hate. I'm like, really? Like it was like the most an innocuous thing that someone did, and I forgot what it was. They're doing this. They just read into it. Like,
But no one
not
can have
everything's a controversy.
But no one can have a human experience where you can actually say something that gets misconstrued. It's going to happen. So no matter what we say, someone could take this, chop it up, and make up something. But at the same time, I think like to hear it from you, and it was talking about you got to know who you are at the beginning, like you said. Therefore, I know who I am. You guys may not know. I'll be fine being misunderstood because you don't belong anyway.
Exactly.
And these people do. And that's who, in my opinion, we have to continue to focus on, because that is your base. And unfortunately, you can't educate everybody. Some people are just, it is sad because there's so much to be shared, and to stay in the middle on a lot of topics and just sit there and watch. Even with how the world is, like, we're going to experience a lot of selective outrage with the freaking mask getting on a plane now.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Instead of just saying, you know what, I just would like for everybody to live a happy life. I would like to be positive about this is actually progress. No, you need to do, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, when did you have dominion over who I am and what I want to do? But I think, you said it. They're a bunch of effing morons, dude. It's just very. Maybe they should lift some freaking weights or something like that. Take all that aggression out on the gym or something like that.
Or at least get laid, you know?
Well, maybe they go to the gym, feel more confident, get laid, eat better.
Exactly.
You know, maybe not sit around and being a piece of shit. Like, it's just. I do hope that people could, at some point in time, kind of sit to themselves and have a sense of reflection. But what's shitty is that they'll probably have it and it'll be too late. They won't have time. And that's something that, I would hate. Yeah. It's like your days are numbered, and then now you get it. Like, wow, I really wasted X amount of weeks or months or years.
Scary, right?
It's very scary, but
I could talk to you all day, but we gotta go. Our hour is up here. You're awesome.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Guys, make sure you check this man out. He's the real deal. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, thank you.
Another awesome episode of the Wolfstead. Share this with your friends. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and whatever else. And we'll talk again next week. Take care.